My heart was racing. I felt a sense of panic rising up within me. It was hard even for me to breathe. Just reading about those 12 boys and their coach trapped in that cave in Thailand this past June almost gave me a panic attack. I'm not a fan of tight spaces. I'm a bit of a claustrophobe. And the thought of those boys in that cave, total darkness, slowly filling up with cold water, oxygen levels going down, it was hard just to imagine. But it was amazing and extraordinary, really, at a time where our world seems so deeply divided, to watch everybody come together, hoping and praying that those boys would be rescued. Watching the whole world come together out of a shared sense of concern and hope for 13 strangers trapped in a cave thousands of miles away. Members of the rescue teams included divers from Australia, from Belgium, from Denmark, and from Israel. And somehow, despite all the many ways that we feel disconnected from one another in this great big world of ours, we were united. Somehow, in a time when people seem more and more closed to one another, our hearts opened to each other. We felt a real sense of urgency, too. The water was rising. The oxygen levels were falling. Time was of the essence, and we wanted somehow, some way to help. We wanted to participate in the rescue. And I began to reflect this summer on just how important it was to those boys that our collective hearts opened. Because if we had turned away, if we had ignored their plight, if we had said to ourselves, what a pity, it's too bad that the rains came at just the wrong time, trapping those poor kids, but there's nothing to do, well then, those boys and their coach most certainly would have died. Had the worldwide reaction been, there's just no way to get them out, it can't be done, those boys and their coach would have died. Had we simply lost interest, had the story slipped from the daily news cycle, perhaps the Thai government would have decided that the rescue just wasn't worth the resources, and those boys would have died. It's that simple. There was no earthly way that they could have rescued themselves. They needed an army of concerned others, willing to expend tremendous effort to rescue them. And I began to think about how the feelings that inspired that rescue just might have the power to rescue us from the darkness of apathy, complacency, and indifference. And this really is the perfect time to consider such things, because the purpose of the High Holy Days is to inspire us to be more loving, kinder, more giving people. This is the time for Cheshbon HaNefesh, the time when we look inside of ourselves and we consider how we can be better, how we can do more, how we can, by saving others, be worthy of salvation. And this feels urgent and important to me for another reason as well, because it seems that our world has become a less caring place of late. There is a coarseness, a meanness, an insidious who cares attitude that seems to be creeping into our culture. And this should concern us deeply as Jews, as Americans, and as human beings. It expresses itself in rising anti-Semitism, in racism, homophobia, sexism, and xenophobia. We feel it in the deterioration of our public discourse. There seems to be no bottom to the way we speak to one another, face-to-face or online. It feels these days like we're trapped in a dark cave of divisions, polarization, and fear-mongering. And to make matters worse, the overwhelming noise of our world, data constantly flowing at us, it's filling up that cave. It's distracting us. It's overwhelming us. It's suffocating us. We need rescuing, especially now. Because at times like these, it's tempting to give in to despair. It's tempting to question if we can even make a difference. It's tempting to just give up. But we cannot do that. To give up would be a betrayal of our tradition. To give up would be a betrayal of our ideals, of the Jewish belief in tikvah, in hope. A hope that in partnership with God, we really can repair at least part of what is broken in the world. For now, for right now, because our Jewish calendar requires it and because our world and our souls need it, we have to begin by focusing on what is broken in ourselves. We have to look inside of our own souls and reflect on how we as individuals can live better lives, and in so doing, make ourselves and our world better. So we turn to our tradition for inspiration and for guidance. And one of the greatest sages of our tradition, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, who lived about 1,800 years ago, asked his students to go out into the world and try to discover the key to living a good and meaningful life. As he put it to them very suggestively, he said, "Se'u ure'u ezehi derech yeshara sheyidbak ba ha'adam." I want you, my students, to go out into the world and look and find which is the right path that a person should cleave to in this world. And so his disciples went out to try to discover the secret to a meaningful life. And the first of his students, Rabbi Elazar ben Horkanos, he came back with an answer. And he said, the secret to a meaningful life is to develop an ayin tovah, a good eye. He said, a person who has an ayin tovah, a good eye, learns to be satisfied and grateful for what she has. She's not envious when she sees with her eye what others have. A person with a good eye can see what's of true value in the world. She knows what really matters, and this enables her to conquer jealousy and envy, which cause so much dissatisfaction and unhappiness and lead to so much rancor and hatred. A second student, Rabbi Yehoshua, returns to his teacher, and he says the key to living a good and meaningful life is to acquire for yourself a chaver tov, a good friend. Because a good friend can instruct us on how to be better in our lives. A good friend can give us gentle rebuke when we've lost the way. A good friend can tell us something no one else can about how we need to change to be better. And that's why he reasoned the key to a good and meaningful life is a chaver tov. And finally, the last of the disciples came back to talk to his teacher. His name was Rabbi Elazar ben Arach, and he said simply, the key to living a good and meaningful life is developing a lev tov, a good heart. And the teacher, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, thought for a moment, and he said, I prefer the final answer over the previous ones, because in Rabbi Elazar ben Arach's words are all of your words. If you develop a good heart, the teacher reasoned, why then you'll know how to use your eye to discern what is of real value. You'll have that ayin tovah because you'll know what truly matters in this world. And if you develop a lev tov, a good heart, then you will acquire for yourself many, many chaverim tovim, many, many good friends, other good-hearted people who will want to be in your company and who will want to help you to be your best self. That's why being good-hearted developing a lev tov should be our highest aspiration. But what exactly does it mean to have a lev tov? And how might we develop this attribute in ourselves? One of our sages, Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch, who lived in the 19th century in Germany, he taught us that a person who has a good heart, a person who is lev tov, has no envy, jealousy, or hatred towards others. And how do we develop that loving attribute, that loving nature? He says it's through empathy, because a good-hearted person is especially sensitive to the misfortune of others. A good-hearted person is especially sensitive to the pain of another. A good-hearted person hears about children trapped in a cave, or about children separated from their parents on our own borders. And a good-hearted person says, how can I help? What can I do to make it better for the innocent? That's what a lev tov does, because a lev tov has empathy and sensitivity for others. Perhaps the greatest sage of them all, Maimonides, taught us that to be a lev tov, to be good-hearted, is to have your entire intention, your entire focus, your entire kavanah on making things better for other people. As he put it, lehativ livnei adam. It comes from the root tov. All of your intention, all of your passion should be about making the world better for others. This is what Maimonides teaches, and this is the essential attribute of the lev tov. So at any moment in your lives, if you want to be a good-hearted person, ask yourself, is what I'm about to do going to make things better for others or worse? Is what I'm about to do going to make the world better for my community or worse? And then always do the thing that will make things better. But how can we develop that mindset? How can we develop that intention? How can we do better day by day in living this ideal of being a lev tov? The good news for all of us is that an essential part of this answer can be found right inside this room. A community can help us to be our best selves. A community can help us to develop that good heart. A community can help us to be more generous, more open-hearted, less envious, better equipped to live up to Maimonides' ideal of a true mensch devoted to making life better for others. A synagogue community can direct us towards our highest values and can help us to become our better selves. A synagogue community, this community, can inspire us to learn more and to do more, to give more, and to be more. A synagogue community can help us to do all of these things because it transmits the eternal teachings of our tradition, teachings about kindness, teachings about justice, teachings about truth. A synagogue community can encourage us to be open-hearted rescuers through our worship, through the prayers that we say, through the words of our prayer books. Think about what we've been talking about today in our worship. Prayers for understanding and forgiveness can help us to be more understanding and forgiving people. Prayers for health and wholeness should make us more grateful for what we have so we don't take these moments of our lives for granted. They can help us to be more empathetic for those who are suffering from illness and pain. Our worship can help us to be more loving, more sensitive, more caring. And a synagogue community is a place where we can find that chaver tov, that good friend. If you participated in a parenting class at Stephen Wise Temple, I just want you to raise your hand. Raise your hand if you were in one of our parenting classes, either as a parent or maybe as a child. Think about the people that you met. Think about some of the friends that you made. And I could ask the same question about our early childhood education programs, about our religious school, about our Melton program. I could ask it about any number of things that we do at this synagogue, and you would, I hope, agree with me that this is the kind of community where you can find a chaver tov, a true and good friend who can help you to be your best self. That's what's possible in a community like this. And finally, in our deeds, as a community, we can practice these values through our Tikkun Olam endeavors, and we can together repair our world and repair ourselves. A diverse synagogue community like ours can help us to be more open-hearted in our interactions with one another, and it can help us to resist the polarization and divisions of these times. We in this room today, we share so much in common. There's so much we share, and yet there are real differences among us. Men and women, straight and gay, Democrats, Republicans, independents, conservatives and liberals, Ashkenazim and Sephardim, Jews by choice, those who come from different religious traditions, those who consider themselves secular, atheists, agnostics. We're a diverse bunch, and this diversity is good. This diversity is good. It can rescue us from the darkness of our echo chambers. It can save us from the computer algorithms that are designed to divide us, the programs that are created to separate us, to reinforce stereotypes, algorithms that ultimately make our world and ourselves, if we're being honest, smaller. This is a place where we can teach one another, where we can support each other in our journey towards the right path of being more open-hearted, empathetic, caring, loving, and respectful people. And let me tell you, I get to see how this community supports that work. I get to see how this community nurtures and inspires these values all the time. I'm privileged to witness it every single day. Now, admittedly, it's not always as dramatic as a cave rescue. I'll grant you that. And it doesn't always seem so life and death. But make no mistake, the stories I'm about to share with you are rescue missions. This summer, I saw more than 100 of our teenagers come up to volunteer in our Wise Readers to Leaders program. I saw the way they gave of themselves, their time and their passion and their hearts to help children to learn to read, to help children to have a meaningful, safe, and wonderful experience over the summer. Children who were strangers to them in June became part of their families by August when the program concluded. And I got to see how the lives and hearts of our teen volunteers were changed through their service because of the values that inspire and animate the project. And don't you doubt for a second that lives are saved, both figuratively and literally, through projects like these. And think about how generative this work is, because these teenagers, God willing, are going to grow into the adult mention that we desperately want them to be. And they will pass on this commitment to Tikkun Olam, this sense of obligation and duty to making the world a better place to their children, midor lidor. I get to see it in the way this community supports one another. I get to see the way you help each other through life's most difficult challenges. This past year, a family in our community suffered the loss of a child. And not dozens, but hundreds of members of this community were there for that family throughout the Shiva period and beyond. And we're there for that family still, and we will be with them as they go forward. And don't you doubt for 1 second, not for 1 second, that the support that this family received helped them in the deepest way imaginable when they felt that there was no way forward, when they felt that there was no way out of the darkest moment of their lives. At moments like this, a community can rescue one another. And I get to see the way as individuals and as a community you respond to the call of our tradition to be or Lagoyim, to be a light unto the nations. As the prophet Isaiah puts it, God's salvation through this light should reach ad katsei haaretz, to the very end of the earth. And this past year, our community filled a shipping container with toys and with medical supplies and books and clothing, and we sent it 9,500 miles away, ad katsei haaretz, to Idlib, Syria, so that children caught in the midst of a horrible civil war, innocent children, would know that there's a Jewish community half a world away that cares about them. Don't you doubt for 1 second that activities like these, that actions like these save lives. There are moments when we feel trapped. There are moments when we feel that we are enveloped in darkness, we're alone and afraid, moments where we feel lost or anxious, times when we can hardly breathe, and we feel like we're about to give in to despair. But in the deepest darkness, there is this light, the Ner Tamid, the eternal light of our tradition, which represents a set of values more than 3 millennia old, a light that shines and shows us the right path, the Derech Yeshara, to which we must cleave, the path towards life, towards goodness, towards salvation, for us and for others. The Torah portion that we just read includes one of the most powerful verses in all of our tradition. God instructs Moses to tell the Jewish people, I have put before you life and death, blessing and curse. Uvacharta b'chaim. Choose life so that you and your descendants might live. Caring more, loving more, being more generous to others. This is a choice that we get to make every day. The path towards goodness is a path that we can select. The path towards life for us, for our children, for now, and for the future as well. It's the right path, and we know it. It's the way out of the cave, and we feel it. It's the way towards light, towards safety and salvation. It's the way that will lahativ livnei adam. It's the way that will make things better for others, for our families, our community, our nation, and our world. With open hearts, we won't just save others. We'll save ourselves.